Hello, this is JB. Welcome to the Still Standing Show. Today, we have a man that we're going to talk about that he had his ups and downs. A lot of ups and downs. And it's not a bad thing. It's not saying that he did anything wrong. It's just that that's the way of life, you know, and he's still standing today of that. We're going to talk about his childhood, when he learned to write music at the tender age of 5 and started singing. We're going to talk about families, drugs, alcohol, mental illness. We're going to talk about where he was born at in Brooklyn and how he moved, the events that made him move from Brooklyn to Mounts Corner, South Carolina. And we're going to just get into it. I've been on him for a little while, but we're just going to get into it. Today, we present Michael Edmonds, AKA Mike. Hello, Mike. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
All right. Mike, we've been knowing each other for about a good 8 years. We go to the same church, and I've known you singing and praise and worship and in the choir, and then now you are the praise and worship leader. So first, I want to thank you for hanging in there, especially for a young guy. I'm just going to be kind of real with it. A young cat, you know, that you're sticking with it through all your trials, through all the ups and downs. You're still giving God praise. You're still thanking God, and you're still, even though you may have stumbled or even some things have come into your life that it's not of you, and you're still hung in there, and you're still giving God praise, and you're worshiping God. So with that, I would like to thank you for coming into the studios and talk to us today. Now, let's start in telling the people, or telling me, a little bit more about yourself. People are interested, who is this dude, Mike? Who's Mike Edmonds? Let's tell us about Mike and where you were born, how you got started singing, and about your mom and dad and the life-changing results from that.
All right. Well, I was born in Queens, New York, and to Robin Edmonds and Reginald Wilson. It was pretty much just real difficult growing up at that time, in that time period in New York, Queens, New York, South Ozone Park. I started singing at the age of 5. That's where I kind of lost myself. Just started singing at 5 and writing at 5. I wrote my first song at 5 in church. And they asked me to get up and sing, and I sung it. And from that moment on, I knew that I wanted to sing. I knew that. My mom was on drugs. My father was on drugs maybe about the age of 17, 18. My father was diagnosed schizophrenic, and they put him in a home. My mom used to shoot up all the time and leave me different places, and cops would get me and take me to DSS, and my grandmother would always have to pick me up. And if it wasn't for my grandmother taking me in as a young child to live with them, I would have either been on drugs, or I would have been in jail, or I would have been dead, because that's all I knew was the streets at that age. That's all I knew. And I moved in with them, and we moved to South Carolina, and about the age of 12, my mom died from AIDS. She went blind first, and she died from AIDS. She died from AIDS at the age of 28.
Wow.
So we moved down here. About the age of 16, I had a record deal. So I moved back to New York and was recording and was finishing my CD up. And at this time, my grandmother had joined a church down in Goose Creek. She invited me to church. I came back down after finishing my CD, and I was going to go back up to New York. And the pastor played a tape of another preacher And the preacher said in the middle of his message, music was never made for entertainment. It was made for God first. And when he said that, it paralyzed me. And I had to call the record company and say, I can't do this no more. And they was like, are you crazy? You know, we could sue you. And I was like, well, do what you have to do. But I never heard from them again. And it was by the grace of God I didn't get sued, and they just let me out the contract.
Wow. And that point, I always use this term, tipping point. That was one of a tipping point for you because of a guy that young, you know, and the lure of, you know, making it big like everybody else in the industry and all. And then by you saying it paralyzed you, it actually changed something deep inside you that you said, no, I'm not going to do that for man, but I'm going to do this for God. And that's a lot for a young guy, a young cat, to want to just say, okay, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do right. And I commend you for it because there's so many kids out there today that they're not looking at that. They're only looking at the get rich quick scheme and wanting to be in that society like that and not be living a life for God. So I thank you and I commend you for that. Now, you said that you moved from Queens down to Moncks Corner, a city boy. Bright lights, streets, stores, everything is real fast. How did you make the transition from fast pace to the slow life in South Carolina? Was it hard for you?
It was kind of hard because I'm used to a corner store being on every corner. I'm used to be able to, you know, when I was a kid in New York, I was able to take the train.
Right.
I knew the routes and I knew how to take the bus. And down here, if you don't have no car, you stuck.
That's it. That's it.
And but it became easier when my grandmother didn't have a house in Moncks Corner, but by the house there's like a trailer park. And that's where I met a lot of my friends, and we would play football. And and down here, they're really into football and the recreation league. And I joined Pee Wee football, and my cousin lived right across the street, and I didn't know that was my cousin. And so I had a pretty good childhood once I moved down here.
Okay.
Had a lot of fun.
That's good. Now, you went to high school down here, and what kind of student were you? You know, like funny kid, or you were just a laid back kid, or just a plain old troublemaker?
I was the kid that everybody was friends with. Nobody really had beef with me.
Right.
I really didn't have beef with no one else. Everybody knew me, especially when I had my record deal.
Right.
Like I said, I wasn't a quote unquote player. I mean, I loved the ladies, but I wasn't like a player. If I was with that girl, even though I was young, I never cheated or anything like that. And that's because of what I seen other dudes, how they treated my mom.
Okay.
And I never liked it. So I always have that soft spot for women.
Right.
But still in all, I still have my quirks. I had a record deal, so I was like, you know, I ain't got to come to school. And, you know, I was skipping days at school and cutting classes. And but, you know, even through that time, somehow I was still a light. Even though that time I still knew, I was still aware of God's presence. Even though I wasn't living right, there were certain things that my boys would do I wouldn't do. Right. Because I had just had a conviction about it.
Right.
But high school, it was a good time.
Okay. Now, a little old young lady you met back in high school. Who's that?
That's my wife, Chrissy.
Now, being that you met her in high school, what was it like meeting her, and then what was the events after that?
Meeting her, we was just friends. Me, her, and her other friend, and me and Patrick, we used to hang out all the time, and you know, we was just good friends. Right. Then she left Berkeley and went to Goose Creek, and you know, we kind of separated. And then we reached back out again. Me and Patrick actually helped her come to Christ. And she joined the church. And then pretty much by the time it was time to graduate, all of us was pretty much in God at the time.
Okay.
Going to the same church, and she got in the Army and moved to Kuwait, and she has call in her life, and she would minister out there to the troops. And while she was going, I was engaged to another young lady. It didn't work out, so pretty much at the end, Chrissy came back from Kuwait, got back into the church, and we started talking on MySpace at the time, and just kind of reconnected. And she came in my life. She came in my life at one of the worst times that I was going through, and God really used her to heal a lot of things that I was going through.
Okay.
And we just got closer, fell in love. We got married.
Okay.
But the good thing is we've been friends. We was always friends.
Right.
So we knew a lot about each other from the jump, because I used to minister to her when she was going through a lot of things. So a lot of things she went through, I knew about.
Right.
A lot of things I went through, she knew about. So there was really no secrets.
Okay. Now you said something about she came into your life at one of the worst times that you were going through. What was that time?
I was homeless at the time when she came into my life. I was homeless. I had just broken up with my fiance. I was just really going through. I was in a lot of pain. Couldn't find a job, so I was living outside, living in my car.
Wow.
I would go to church, do praise and worship, get off, get back in my car, and just drive around. Friends would let me stay in there because I was too prideful to ask for help.
Right.
So I used to be like, hey, just let me park my car in your driveway, let me sleep. And they was like, okay, well, you can come in the house. No, I'm good. It was in the dead of winter, just freezing in my car at night. And she came in my life at that time, broke up with my fiance, and she would tell me, hey, just, come over, eat some dinner. I would eat dinner and leave and all that. And that time we just fell in love, and she didn't judge me, and that blessed me, and it started healing things within me. Right. And for her to even want to marry me at that time in that situation, she tells me today is because I didn't look at you where you were at. I see what God placed in you, where you were going. Right. So.
Good. So now you guys got married.
Right.
Now, there's a little bundle of joy. Every time I see that little bundle of joy in your arms, I see something in your eyes. But that's now, right? She's a couple years old. That's now. But there was an event that when she first was born and came into the world, that it was a pretty doggone scary time. Tell us about that time.
I'll never forget that. That was August the 3rd, 2009. My wife was in labor. As the baby was coming out, my daughter Heavenly, as she was coming out, she had a bowel movement. And she swallowed it. It was a huge bowel movement, and she swallowed it as she was coming out. And it went inside her lungs, and it was keeping her from breathing. They had to rush her to the ICU, put a tube down her and try to suck that out of her lungs. The doctor said it was give and take. They didn't know what was going to happen. And they said, oh, well, she'll have to be in here for about 3 to 4 weeks. Immediately we prayed, cried out to God. Our pastor got word of it, came and laid hands on her, prayed for her. We all prayed. And literally within that week, the doctors was like, she's completely healed. Like it never happened. Y'all can take her home. Right. And she's a healthy 2-year-old. She'll be 3 within a month. Right. That little girl is part of my motivation for what I do because I have to leave a legacy for her. And I have to teach her the word and to be a young lady, because the father puts the self-esteem inside the young lady. Right. Because if he don't tell her she's beautiful, some knucklehead is. That's right. And my daughter Heavenly, that's my ticket to jail. Right. Because if something go down with her, I'll serve time. That's my joy.
Now, being that you guys got married, and you had a child and everything still wasn't, you had some battles. You had some high points and low points. You want to talk about some of your high points and low points as of being married this far?
The high parts about my marriage, I can't speak for anyone else's, is you can choose to grow and mature, or you can choose to be immature when things come. We chose to be mature.
Right.
It brought us closer to each other. It taught us how to fight for the things that's worth fighting for. Right. It taught us how to stop reacting to the situations no matter how bad it looks. And it taught us, most importantly, how to walk in faith. For example, one of the lowest parts is where we were staying we had to live in a hotel room. And we had no car. And I went outside and I was crying to God. But I said, Lord, in the midst of this, nothing I could ever go through would change the fact that you're still God. And you will forever be worthy of all the praise and all the honor and all the glory. And I started worshiping God. It must have been about 4 o'clock in the morning. I went outside and started worshiping God in front of the hotel. A young man walks up to me and says, sir, he said, I'm not trying to run a game on you. I just got out of prison. All I want is to try to stay in a room tonight to stay cold. To stay warm. You don't even have to give me the money. He said, I'll go with you to the hotel if you can just help me out with I'm only $12 short. And it was freezing because I was out there bundled up praying. And I had $20 left. That's all I had. And God said, give him the 20. And in my heart, I was crying out like, God, this is all I got. I just finished crying out to you for a car and everything because we didn't have a car. Right. And God said, give him the money. So I went back in the hotel room. I didn't tell my wife. I didn't wake her up. Took the $20 out, went back, gave it to him. He looked at me and he was like, no, man, all I need is 12. I said, did you get something to eat yet? He said, no. I said, well, you pay the 12 and you get something to eat. Right. And that blessed him tremendously. And he actually went and did it. That same morning, someone came up to me and said, hey, Brother Mike, you got a car yet? I said, no. He was like, God told me to bless you with a car.
Wow.
And that obedience in the midst of my struggle,
right.
And God told me to give my last, and I did it. And I was out there praying for a car.
Right.
And that same morning, get blessed with a car.
Look at that.
So, and that's just, and I think that came from not being so overwhelmed that you can't hear the voice of God.
Right.
To get you out of your situation, because I could have been like, nah, bro, I ain't got it.
True.
And that could have kept me from getting a car.
Right.
So it's maturing in the things of God.
Wow. Okay. Now, influence, music. What artists influence you the most in how you go about singing a song, preparing for a song, and even writing a song? What artists, or maybe a couple artists, that really do it for you?
I guess just all around artists since I was young. Because when I was young, I didn't have any Christian artists that I listened to. I wasn't even saved. Right. It was Michael Jackson. What my first album I got was the Bad album. Right. And I would spend hours in front of the mirror just singing and spinning around. And my grandma would be like, if you pop one more button, spinning around trying to be like Michael Jackson, I'm going to beat you behind. Mm-hmm. But just not even his lifestyle, just the singing, the music, the genius of what he did, to be able to go to to have that influence. See, as Christians, we should have that same influence. He had the influence that if no one in the United States bought one album from him, he would still have the #1 album in the world because he done influence every country. Right. If no countries buy it, Japan about the whole thing. Right. The Philippines about the whole thing. Africa about the whole thing. There's no artist around that can do that now. Wow. And it was Marvin Gaye. When my aunt got a Marvin Gaye collection, and I was listening to a song, Distant Lover, and I heard the live version of it, and I was like, wow, just his voice. Because a lot of people be like, well, he sung secular, but the gifts of God come without repentance. He was still, that was still a gift from God. And on the spiritual side, when I got saved, I didn't have no one to look up to. Everybody sounded the same to me. And then I heard Israel, Israel New Breed, and I loved the atmosphere of worship that he set. I loved his heart. And another artist is Pastor Donnie McKirkland. I love Pastor Donnie McKirkland simply because of his presence when he steps on the stage. He takes the man. He can sing Mary Had a Little Lamb, and people won't get saved, and the presence of God will fall. Just his that commanding presence, that anointing that's just on him.
Now, I've been to an Israel concert, and wow, what an experience. It was years and years ago. And when the concert was over, me and my wife looked at one another and said, do you realize we were standing up for 3 hours? You just lost yourself into the presence and into what was going on. We didn't realize that we actually stood up, and then we actually thought about it. Everyone around us was doing the same thing, was praising and worship and standing up. And I was like, wow. And Pastor Donnie, what a man. That guy can just straight worship. I mean, it is great to have the word, but when a man or a woman can really go behind the veil with the gift of song, wow. It really, because praise and worship actually really ushers in the presence, that it affords you to go behind the veil and to really set you up for the word of God that is coming forth. So many pastors, they really rely or have a great praise and worship because that ushers the people and get the people ready. It's like, I call it like a brick wall. That praise and worship gets out there and they start singing and praising and worship, and that wall starts cracking. Mortar start falling off, bits and pieces start falling off. Amen. That wall get weak. And then when the pastor comes in and he starts delivering the word, then that word cuts that wall down. Really what it's saying is that person that you don't know what that person is going through. And then that person comes into the church and we don't know what that person been battling with just before they drove up at church. But then when they came in and they allowed the Holy Spirit to usher them through praise and worship, and when that pastor comes in and he gives a word, that his heart is already prepared to receive that message that is coming forth. And when that happens, that's a great thing. So I thank you guys, man, for praise and worship and stuff. Now, we're just going to touch bases back a minute because I went forward just a little bit. But when you guys got married, you had some really challenges. And by challenges is that you was forced to move a few times. And how did you guys deal with that, and how did you get over that?
We pretty much had to get delivered from people.
Wow.
And people's opinions about us, and because we got judged, especially me, because me and my wife are interracial.
Right.
I'm black, she's white and Hispanic.
Right.
And there's a stereotype that goes on a black man. So when we started struggling, that stereotype came out, not knowing that I used to go to the plasma center twice a week just to put food on our table, just to put gas in the car. Not knowing the struggles that I've been through to try to keep my family afloat, because it was hard finding a job with the economy. And if you did have a job, it was a temporary job, or you know, maybe it didn't last, or maybe it wasn't taking care of the bills. So we got judged by family. by friends who we thought were friends. But we pretty much had to put in our mind, you know what? They see us now, but we see where God has taken us.
Right.
And when we get there, there will be some apologies.
Yeah.
Now, there's been people that stuck, with us through it all.
Right.
And we bless God for them.
Right.
But the ones that just family members and, looking at me a certain way, Chrissy, you shouldn't have married that black man. You should have married someone like this. You should have married someone like that. And she was like, no, I married who God ordained for me to marry, who I'm in love with.
Right.
So that was the key. Just getting, pretty much not caring what people think.
Now, I set that question up because so far it seems like ever since a kid, you've experienced hilltop and you experienced valleys. So as a praise and worship leader, you have your hilltop and your valley. What are just one of your hilltop experience and then one of your valley experience being a praise and worship leader?
Being a worship leader, I guess the hilltop would be just people being blessed.
Right.
People coming to you and be like, I was so blessed by what you sung. I was so blessed by the team. That let us know like the hard work that we put in. A lot of people don't know. So that's the most rewarding part to me, and knowing that God is pleased. Because we can sing a song and it'd be great, but if God is not pleased with it, it's in vain.
Right.
And I guess the valley would be just the stereotype that's put on us as worship leaders, as the praise team, because we're in the spotlight, quote unquote spotlight, on the stage, and people automatically think you're stuck up, you're cocky, you think you're all that, and it's like, well, no, it's not that. We can't be up there with nasty attitudes. We can't be up there looking bummy.
Right.
We gotta look nice.
Right.
And I know for me, sometimes I'll go off, man. I'll start singing, and I'll start singing my heart out, and people take that as you showing off. It's like, no, I'm giving God 100% of me. And I remember Pastor told me one time, because I went to him one time, I was concerned about it, because I heard like people talking about me.
Right.
And he was like, boy, if God tell you to do backflips on that stage, you better do backflips. And when I stopped looking at the people, and was like, man, I'm going out here to minister to God foremost. Right. And God ministered to me and said, you minister to me, and I'll minister to them.
Wow.
So when we got that concept, that's when I look at things differently. But I think that have to be the low part, because they don't know what these women that I sing with and men go through in the sacrifice.
Okay. Now, and you said something, and a lot of people I don't think may have caught it or anything, but being free of people is one of the most things that you have to do as a Christian, is that being free of quote unquote talking behind your back, judging you, whispering rumors, or even just being free of people in your own mind yourself, and stop trying to impress. You can't impress everybody.
I know.
You can't worry about everybody liking you or anything. You cannot worry about that stuff. So, and that's what part of being free of people is, that you're no longer bound, or people don't have you shackled anymore, because you're doing it for God and not for man. And I thank you for that. Now, this is the good part. You got an EP.
Right.
And that thing is called what?
Get It Back.
Come on now, say that one more time.
Get It Back.
What are you getting back?
I'm getting back my life, my joy, my peace, my finances, everything that belongs to me.
Right.
I named it Get It Back because, I think I was talking to you one time about, we'd be like, oh, I'm going back to the enemy camp to get my stuff back.
Right.
Because he stole it.
Right.
But it's like, did he steal it or did you give it away?
Uh-oh.
So that's what we're getting back.
Uh-oh. So you're getting that thing back. And then you're getting back more than that. And see, that's what I like about it, is that you're getting it back. You actually saying, I let that slip away. Some of it I let slip away, and some of it was stolen. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and get it back and worship God in the same presence of you getting it back. Now, being that that's the song, and we're gonna ask you in a little bit here if you could sing a couple bars, but first of all, where can I get Michael Edmonds Get It Back? If I'm out there and I'm looking and listening to this, where can I get It Back?
You can get it back at iTunes. You can get it back. You can get it at Rhapsody. You can get it at cdbaby.com. You can get it at Amazon. You can get it at Napster. Pretty much all the major places where you can download it, you can easily get it.
Okay.
You can hear it on Spotify. You can hear it on Django Radio, which is an internet radio, JANGO radio. It's out there.
Okay. Now, is the price still the same all the way across the board, or does it varies?
If you want to get, say, if you like a single on it, it's regular iTunes, 99 cents.
Right.
But the whole CD is about $9.
Okay. All right. Now, where do you see yourself? Because I know me and you talk, and I know there's a certain place and a certain atmosphere that you want to be at, and I'm gonna let you say that. But where would you be in 5 years? Tell me, where do you want to be in 5 years?
5 years from now, I want to be serving at a greater capacity.
Right.
5 years from now, I want to be able to have the freedom to bless others.
Come on.
To sow into the church.
Right.
Take care of my family.
Right.
Pretty much freed up to do what God has called me to do, what I have to worry about all the other things.
Mm-hmm.
I can, instead of me worrying about my light bill, I can help somebody with their light bill.
Right.
And to be a force in this industry that is so corrupted.
Mm-hmm.
And to be a light, because we got a lot of gospel artists that sing, but at the same time, some of them not even living right.
Mm.
And to bring a reality check, like, look, we're not just artists, we're ministers.
Right.
And to bring my style. I think I have a voice to this industry,
mm-hmm.
to the gospel industry, and to bring my style, my flavor mm-hmm. to the scene, to bring my writing to the scene, to bring something different. Mm-hmm. So 5 years from now, I plan on being very, just a person of influence.
Okay. So now, someone out there that you have some influence, give the brother a holler. You see his face, give the brother a holler so that he can do more for the kingdom. And what he does for the kingdom, God is obligated to do for you. And when you start putting kingdom first, start putting God first, then he's going to honor that. And by him honoring that, then what you're doing is that you're giving the gifts that God gave to you, you're giving it back to him, and he'll bless you tremendously for it. And just stay focused. Now, Mike, I want you to look into that camera, and then I want you to tell that young guy, or maybe an older guy, or a lady, or what have you, that maybe starting to write, or maybe they're having some issues, and you've clearly stated some of the issues that you're having, maybe one of their parents, or maybe the life circumstances they're going through right now. I want you to look into that camera, and I want you to briefly just tell that individual, you're still standing. You tell them what they could do and how they could do it to still stand.
2 words: don't quit. You cannot quit, especially when God has called you to do something, no matter how it looks like, no matter what it feels like. You can't quit. And next, you got to find out who's with you and who's not with you.
Wow.
Because there's people that's with you for the wrong reasons, and there's people that's with you to hinder you. So you have to find out who's with you, who's not with you. You got to get a good support group. And next, you can't care what anyone says. You got to get delivered from people's opinions, the way people look at you. You've got to get away from all that. And you have got to focus on what God has called you to be and who he says you are. And the last thing I would say, and this is for me, you cannot focus on your mistakes in your past.
Wow.
Because as long as you're breathing, you're going to make mistakes. And you can't focus on that, and you can't let anyone bring up the things from your past. And you have to go to God and ask him, Lord, help me be more like you every day. And I think that's a lot of things that Christians lack, that people in general lack, is to change. You have constantly have to change and renew your mind and ask God to make you more like him.
Wow. Thanks, Mike. I really do appreciate that. That blessed me considerably. And then for the individuals out there that is looking at this, it's really going to bless them. You're going to touch some lives that you may not even think about. There's a lot of people that's going to be looking at this, and they're going to be blessed with it. So with that, Get It Back. Can you give us a little sample of Get It Back? I mean, just a couple bars, if you will, and then we're going to tell them how they can get in contact with you, and then we're going to thank you at the end of what's going on.
Okay. And for those who are watching, this is South Carolina. It's allergy season, okay? So take it easy. But the chorus is, the verse is, don't you quit or give up now. God will turn it all around. He'll turn it all around for you. You've come too far to give up now. God will turn it all around. He'll turn it all around for you. Yeah. I'm gonna get my joy back. I'm gonna get my peace back. I'm gonna get my life back. Get it all back.
I like that. I like that. I like that. You guys got to get the CD. He was in church a couple Sundays ago, and woo, he blessed the audience with that. And I really do thank you for that. Now, I'm out there, and I just heard this and seen this. How can I get in contact with you? I mean, do you have email, or do you have a website, a Facebook account, or a Twitter account, or what have you? I am really impressed with you out there. So how can I get in contact with you?
Well, the website is under construction.
Right.
But they can email me at michaeljedmonds@yahoo.com. That's Michael, the letter J, and Edmonds, EDMONDS, @yahoo.com. They can look me up on Facebook.
Right.
And when the website is up, they'll get more information on that.
Okay. And when the website is up, you'll put it on your Facebook account so that everyone will know to go to that website at that time?
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. I really do appreciate you, Mike, for coming in. And in closing, you just heard from Michael Edmonds. I know him as Mike. He's been a really great guy. He's really blessed a lot of people with song and the gift that God has given him, that he gives back to God. You've heard about his ups and downs, his trials and tribulations. You've heard about the hurt and the pain. You've also heard about the joy. You also heard about his family life, his wife, and his child. And the most important thing you've heard about was that he is a true worshiper. He's a man of God. He loves singing for God. And I really do appreciate him coming in. Now, the thing about it is that we're blessed. He's from Summerville, South Carolina, or he's living in Summerville, South Carolina now. And that we thank him for sharing his word. This is JB, a.k.a. Bishop, at jaybministries.com. That's the letter B, ministries.com. And this is the Still Standing Show. Appreciate you. Love you. Peace.